Terrific. Well, my name is Jordy Izzard, and I am an Alumni Relations Officer here at SAIS. I'm here today with Sheila Buckley, who graduated from SAIS 50 years ago in 1963, and today's date is April 11th, 2013. And thanks so much for being here. We're just going to ask a few questions and have a little bit of a conversation, so thanks so much. And why don't we just start with what originally brought you to SAIS?
What brought me to SAIS was that I was an international relations student in undergraduate school at Pomona College in California, and there were very few graduate institutions in that field that took women, so I applied here and was accepted. Most of the other big five did not accept women in their classes. I guess nothing else exceptional about how I happened to get here. I thought that I would never leave. I mean, would always go back to California, but of course that doesn't happen when you work for the federal government. There wasn't a lot going on.
Good. Okay. And when you were here and in D.C. for 2 years at SAIS, think back and tell us a little bit about what some of your memories were.
Well, I hadn't been in the East Coast, and I hadn't encountered things like cockroaches. That was big in the apartments that I had when I was here. Our class started out in the whatever the old building was, and that was kind of a challenge, just even getting in there and up those stairs.
In Florida Avenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also ran in this town for the first time. Again, coming from California, I hadn't experienced it, but how deeply racial this country was. Great racial divisions. Washington was kind of a southern town, and I was astounded. I didn't know about that very much. Had some great memories of SAIS. The first year, we were all down in the basement, and the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening, and our professors and the students just sat down there and wondered if the world was going to blow up, which I guess made us feel good about being in the international relations field, but hoping we would still be in it the next couple of days.
What was that like? What do you remember?
It was scary. It was scary, because most of us knew sort of more about the background and more about the military capabilities of various countries, ours and theirs, than the average person, because that's the field we were in. And it was very nerve-wracking. Yep.
What do you remember? I imagine there weren't like TVs everywhere like there are now. How were you learning about the information?
I think it was on TV, probably black and white, but I believe there was a TV down in the basement of the old building.
And that's where everybody
we just watched it, yeah.
Went down
like most other people.
What's going on. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, great. What else do you remember about being at SAIS?
Well, it was a while ago. What do I remember? Professors were great. Professors were great. At Pomona, I'd had also great professors, and it was also very small classes, so I really appreciated that about SAIS. I don't know how it is today, but it was very nice then. I actually came back to SAIS in '67, '68 for another year on a Secretary of Defense fellowship, and it was great then too. You really got a good education. The language requirement, I think, at the time was the best, the stiffest of the big graduate schools, and that was also a very good idea. Not pleasant when you were going through it, but a good idea.
That's great. Anything else? Do you remember places you went around here, or did you live in the neighborhood, or did you have roommates?
We lived across the street. I had a roommate, Herschel Challenor, whom you're going to talk to, was my roommate. And, of course, we had trouble finding an apartment together, but I think SAIS intervened and ordered this woman to take us because she had typically taken in SAIS boarders. I've remained good friends with several SAIS people after 50 years, even though we don't see much of each other. Several people who were here today were nice, good colleagues. What else in those 2 years?
It's terrific. Actually, in your group today, there's several of you who are roommates.
Yeah.
That I talked with.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
I don't remember how big the class was. I tell people it was 100 or so, but I don't know if that was here and Bologna or 100 here. I think it was both, actually. I'm not sure. So.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about when you graduated in '63. How did you get your career started, and was it something some people knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they did that for the next 40 years, and some people did something entirely different. What about you? How did it get started?
It got started because I heard Paul Nitze, who at that time I guess was already in the Defense Department, and he just gave this really interesting speech to a small group of people, probably a SAIS group, I'm not sure, and revealed, which I hadn't known before, that you could go into fields other than the Department of State and still do foreign policy. And that happened to be in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which had a big component, it's even bigger now, not huge for the Defense Department, but very excellent group of people who worked on foreign affairs for the Defense Department and with the State Department and the National Security Council. And so I ended up going over there as a civil servant and just stayed with it, liked it, stayed with it, started out making $4,000 a year, and ended up pretty much at the top of the civil service ranks, the non-political ranks, and senior executive person. Worked on arms control, chemical weapons negotiations with the Soviets, biological weapons, non-proliferation, nuclear non-proliferation. And I or my staff both developed the policy and ran the negotiations at a certain level. And it was very rewarding. I liked it. It was a good career.
And how long did you do that?
I did that the whole time. There wasn't a lot of mobility between jobs, and the State Department was, I don't know what their actual written policy was, but for most of the first half of my career, they were off limits to women. In fact, when I first graduated from SAIS, of course, we all wanted to be foreign service officers, but you had to, and you could get in, but you had to pass a test, which I don't know if it was equal for everybody, it probably was. But then if you were female, you had to say, no, I have no interest in ever getting married. You had to do that in the oral interview.
And in fact, if you did, you were no longer allowed.
Well, I don't know. I didn't want to lie about it, so I didn't even try. But that was the only thing that was pretty bad about the situation then in the State Department. Of course, it's wide open now. It's great. I mean, and it's probably a great career for SAIS students who want to go down that road. And there are other interesting jobs in the civil service for SAIS students, such as the Defense Department, the Treasury Department, all of the economic agencies, and academia.
And along those lines, and thinking about experiences you had and the current students today, some of whom you had lunch with, what advice might you have? And it doesn't have to be one particular piece, but anything you think of. I heard yesterday a question was asked of a panel of alumni that were asked by the newly admitted students, what might you have changed when you were here? What would you have done differently? And maybe you can think along those lines and or do something you would have done again. What would you offer to current students today?
You know, I don't really feel that I would have that much to offer in terms of career choices. I think maybe getting a PhD is a good career choice today. I think less so then, because the field was so small and there were a lot of opportunities, job opportunities. I don't feel like I have a lot, I just don't know what their range of courses are, I imagine they're even more qualified, or that they're very qualified coming in. Most of us were right out of college, and in other schools now, you put in a couple of years, and then you go to graduate school. And if that's the SAIS pattern, again, they're probably more mature than we were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So in those terms, I probably can't say too much what they should do as students.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they have to deal with all the issues of being being workers,
Mm-hmm.
both the men and the women.
How do you see the world today being different than it was when you were in school?
Well, it's just opened up. It's just opened up. And in America, my impression is that qualified people, and we won't talk about lower education and how do you get to be a qualified person, but qualified people, irrespective of gender or ethnicity, really do have all the opportunities they want. And that's just a total sea change from 50 years ago, as everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
So
Great. Well, thanks so much for being with us today and for
right.
answering questions and having a conversation, and congratulations on 50 years of being at SAIS.
50 years of, of being out of
Being,
SAIS.
since you graduated from SAIS, yeah. But
Great.
actually, and all that you've done to help the world. Thank you.